Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the latest in the Miller Knoll Insight series online. My name is Mark Catchlove and I lead the Miller Knoll Global Insight Group. And in case you don't know, Miller Knoll is a family of brands and they're all listed in front of you. And all these brands design and manufacture products for places where people live, where they learn, where they get healed, and where they work. And I'm really pleased today to introduce our guest, Charles Corley, who's an architect and director of organizational development at Moser. He'll give you a little bit more information and background about himself, who is going to be looking at the subject of leading the change and using ChatGPT. I am really looking forward to this. Please use the chat box to ask any questions or make observations as we go along. Charles, it is all over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Well, I have quite a bit to show, so I'm going to go through it rapidly. And as you were told, the slides will be available afterwards. I hope I can make sure that you can actually get a transcript as well, because you'll find out by the end of this that that's actually very useful for you. So I'm not going to talk much about myself. I'm an architect, interior designer. I've led several offices throughout Asia and the US. And I've been working internationally for almost all my life. And I currently work, well, for the last 22 years, I've been working with Moser Associates, an AEC firm that has, I lost count, but I think it's 28 locations globally. So we do primarily workplace, but also architecture. And we run the gamut of handling every aspect. So let's jump into it because it's a lot to cover. So I want to just frame this in terms, I was told first by Mark that I could either talk about wellness or connection or culture. And I said, let's try to fit in all three with the thread that we're going to try and use ChatGPT to augment our capabilities in that area. What I hope you will take away from this is a clearer view of today's pain points, but I'm not going to dwell on it because we've heard many of them before. Practical patterns that you'll find that we'll just cover very briefly. Some of you probably think you're expert, and that's cool, but I have to cover some of the basics for other people. Demonstrations, I think there's about 4 or 5 demonstrations we'll run through very quickly, but I can't really use ChatGPT live the way I'd like to because switching back and forth is cumbersome. So unfortunately, ChatGPT being a sort of a text situation it's going to have a lot of text on the slides, but don't worry about that because you'll find out by the end that all that's useful, even if you can't read it right now. And I want to say the reason I'm using ChatGPT primarily is because Moser Associates has made a big investment in using the enterprise version of ChatGPT globally for absolutely everyone. It's behind the use for all of our efforts. So they've very, very much helped all of our people adopt AI through large language models. And they're doing that by giving us the top tier language model to use. But of course, all this will work on any language model you use. And then we'll talk about metrics, what metrics you might want to get and how you can use them in ChatGPT generally, but I'm not going to delve into the nitty-gritties. I also want to give you a direct, useful way that you can apply all this, which is why I'm talking about the transcript and the actual PowerPoint being of use to you immediately following this. So, the pain points, I think you all know. I'm not the kind of person that reads slides to people. So don't expect me to be reading the slides to you. But these are the kind of pain points we're talking about. Meeting volume and distractions. I hear about this and I've written about it many times on Post. Cross-team links and hybrid work is really having a sort of firm-wide effect on the way people collaborate in their networks. Managers carry a high load and it's not getting any better. And it's very hard to manage the overload, basically. And then wellness spending, well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't yield the results we'd hoped. So I wanted to talk about, well, first of all, I want to mention up in the right-hand corner there, you'll see a slide that has to do with a little survey I ran in the last week or so. There weren't really that many respondents, but I think even if you scaled it up, you'd find the numbers are pretty much the same. And that is people generally sense that AI will help in conflict resolution, team agreement, stronger cross ties. I agree with all those. Not so much in more presence, less stress. But the truth is, if you get the other three right, I think that one will happen naturally. You've heard it before, I'm sure, that you should use ChatGPT like a teammate. For some people, that's easy. For others, it doesn't seem natural. You know, you're talking about a neural network, so it's not like any other software. And I think some of you probably have used it quite a lot. But I've been giving hundreds of sessions with people to help them elevate their capabilities. And I have to be honest with you that every time I'm told, oh, yes, I use ChatGPT every day, when I dig deeper, 80% of those cases or more are, well, I use it to write emails, to do summaries, to search through reports. And that's like having this super genius, the most genius person you can imagine, sitting by your side and just asking them to write emails. So we want to look at having them do something a bit deeper. And so I find it's iterative. I hope you do too. And I'd like to hear about your feelings about using it that way. This all, by the way, I'm using ChatGPT 5, which is now across the board the main model. So the first thing I wanted to mention to you is that we should spend more time asking ChatGPT to quiz us, to ask questions back. And you'll find that theme through everything I talk about, because it can really help you surface issues and blind spots that you otherwise wouldn't have perceived. And the goal here is to gain insights and do better thinking and bounce ideas and actually, yes, get results. But we're not really talking about time saving, and we're not really talking about automation. Those two things are not on the table for today's session. You can automate, and yes, you can save a lot of time, true. But that's not the goal here. The goal is to elevate your thinking, to have the ability to think deeper, broader, and to generate all sorts of extra possibilities that you can then distill into actionable results. The other thing besides having GPT ask you questions, I would say, is to make sure that, of course, you have good inputs. I often start with some seed information to bring it in, to get the ball rolling, even if it's not the exact thing that I want to be talking about. It could be a transcript from any YouTube video I saw, a meeting minutes report, anything. But even if it's not the key thing that I want to talk about, I like to bring an example of something generally that I want to discuss. Also, we need to be more curious. We need to be able to not be scared to push the boundaries and ask things that we think are silly or strange and all that. It's okay if you don't say and thank you to it. We all know that that's more human interaction, which is fine. But it's okay to talk about your ideas, your worries, your concerns, and give it the deeper understanding, because part of the context is that it's your real goals. If you ask it to create a report from all these materials, it will do it. But if you say, create a report for all these materials, and I have to tell you, I'm really worried that the client is underestimating our capability and is worried too much about such and such, then it will write the report differently to address those concerns. And then I'm going to just start running through several demonstrations. And in keeping with the theme that we've talked about and the theme of the survey that I did, I'd like to start with the one-on-one interactions. Now, this might be a team leader talking to a team member, or it might be one colleague talking to another. But usually it starts because there's something not quite right, there's an irritation, a problem, and actually, if you diagnose it, the problem is usually the person who wants to bring this up and resolve it, not the person who is perceived to have a problem. So the goal is not to correct the other person or to correct their problem. It's your problem with the way things are going, and how can you resolve it? And so if we approach it from a standpoint, even if you're the leader, even if you're the director, approach it from a standpoint that you're basically trying to build that mutual respect and understanding, and to be digging deeper to understand the circumstances around everything, because everybody works differently. You want to gather notes, understandings. You can even have handwritten scribbles. I've used screenshots from WhatsApp or anything you have, anything at all that can gather information from any aspect that you notice or that you want to gather, because you'll hear this throughout this entire presentation. And I think many of you know, ChatGPT is multimodal. It'll take all different kinds of information, and it can sort it out beautifully. So gather what you can, even your own hand scribbles. And to use an example of that, this is my hand scribble as an example on a page where I actually photographed it in the angle that you see here, and it can read it just fine. It can read anything. I've seen notes that have come in from contractors and suppliers and things that were so scribbly nobody in the office could read it, and yet ChatGPT could. So don't be concerned about the quality of the inputs. Any kind of thing you can get in there is fine. Just a case in point, I saw a picture of somebody working at their desk with sketches who was talking about their experience in school and some sort of a higher education pursuit they were doing. And I asked ChatGPT on this little tiny picture that was in LinkedIn to look at what's on the screen and what's angled on their desk and tell me what they're working on. And it photographed it from every angle, blew it up, put it all together, and it gave me a complete story of how it was trying to do urban work using interstitial spaces like underneath bridges and alleys and things like that to support people. It figured it all out just from little tiny blurry pictures. So it's really got very powerful capability, and that's gotten even better with ChatGPT 5. So you're using it as a thinking partner, you're encouraging reflection and insight, and you're also including your professional objectives because the goal is for both of you to be successful and have this back and forth dialogue with it. Of course, what I said at the beginning holds even truer here. You want to let it ask you as many questions as you like, because no matter how good you think your prompt is or your question is, there's a lot of gray areas or unknowns. So you let it fill those in. This is only a tiny percentage of the questions it asked me when I said, ask me anything. It asked me about 2 or 3 times as many questions. So it might seem a little exhaustive sometime to answer its questions. And maybe you can say, I don't know for some of them. But you're giving a lot of information to it about the person you're talking about, but you're also giving it some idea about yourself as well. Remember that ChatGPT, as I think you all know, has amazing global information about science, about medicine, art, history, legal issues, medical issues, but it's also got the world's knowledge of behavioral experts and psychology. So it's pretty good at reading between the lines. What you're after is a coaching program for both yourself and the other person to find a way to work together, gain commitment on both sides, and have a better way forward. And it can even help you with the notes for your conversation. But I don't think we're trying to have it prescribe or fix everything. It's preparing you to have a meaningful conversation. So that's the first demonstration. I'm not going to upload anything to ChatGPT and demonstrate it, but that's the first way that you can use it for connectivity, wellness, and culture. The second way I would say is expanding that to the team level. So you want to have team sessions with ChatGPT as a participant. Put it on the wall, let everybody discuss it together. Maybe some of you are doing that now. Interact back and forth with the whole team. In this case, we're looking for a way to compose how we work together, which involves a lot of understanding. This is the way architects, engineers, and other professions often work because we're working on one-off projects that have bespoke special achievements. And then we go to the next project and it's all new again, all new situation, site, location. Even if you say the client, the people you're working with, it may be different client people with different concerns and issues. So nothing's ever the same on a project. So we're always doing a bespoke thing, and we're having to work together as a very cohesive band of brothers to get this done. So that forms naturally in our profession We eat together, we discuss issues, we bond quite closely, and we know each other's rhythms and personal lives to at least an extent. We don't necessarily have to be friends, but we have to know enough of where the boundaries are, how to work off each other when the other person is at their best. But that may not translate through every different kind of profession. And what I hear from experts is that the world is going the way towards the way that architects have already been doing it, to have these tight-knit teams and to go the extra mile to get to know one another. So if you can get this done, bring it in, use ChatGPT, and go through, sorry, that's my touchy mouse I mentioned earlier. Sorry, it's my very touchy mouse. There we go. You want to have a session where you're not trying to solve things. You're trying to bring up all the issues and not trying to necessarily jump to a conclusion. You know, it's the typical brainstorming thing where there are no wrong answers. There's psychological safety. Nobody's going to put anybody off sides. Anything is valid to talk about. And you can actually use a new feature in ChatGPT called branching chats. And maybe some of you have heard of it, but you can also try it yourself if you haven't, which is if you've loaded up information, and by the way, you can load up an astonishing amount of information. I've uploaded as many as 80 files. That's 80 files, and I haven't hit the limit yet. You load up whatever you want to load up to talk about it, schedules, team issues, anything you can think of. And basically, once you've gone down a chat, you can then say, create a branch chat, and it will create a whole new chat, but use the same source information so that you can try examining that from another direction and go another direction with the information while preserving your first chat and the same source information. You keep doing that and branching off chats so that you don't have to reload it all over again or go down way up and down a large session that's covering many different avenues that don't really connect. So just let you know that's a wonderful way to do it, is to use branching chats. If you don't know how to use it, I won't have time to tell you here, but like everything else, you simply ask ChatGPT to teach you. So what we're after here is having a team. I've given an example of 10 people here who are a multicultural hybrid team. And these are not real people, and that's not me. It says Charles in Singapore. That's not this Charles. and then talk about all the things and issues that you brought up in your brainstorming session and organize them into a sense of topics. And then talk about the solutions, your personal rhythms, your preferences, your communication styles. You're looking for where and how to connect. You're looking for blending autonomy with team flow. And flexibility. A lot of the things, frankly, that Sophie Wade talks about. I don't know if you know Sophie Wade. She's very successful, has many books, and has, I think, about 650,000 learners on LinkedIn for her courses. And so this plays into somewhat her expertise. And if you're not familiar with her, you might want to look her up and learn from her as well. So you have this back and forth chat as a team to talk about any issues you want to, but that's what you're after there, to get to know the rhythms, the way we work. Maybe I want to work in the morning, you guys want to work together, you want to come to the office, I prefer to do this, and get a rhythm going where you understand how you're going to do things, what channels you're going to do, etc., what your roles are. A team that works together as tightly as an architectural team does this already, but every time there's new teammates, it's good to go through it again. But if you don't do this now, I strongly recommend it, because ultimately you'll have some kind of a team agreement, can fit on one page, that tells you the patterns you're going to use, the channels and norms that are established, respecting each other's rhythms, and just an improved flow of the whole project. Because you'll get to know, well, this is the time when he wants to have focus work, and that's the time when she's going to be usually doing something else. And you'll be able to organize your work around getting the results rather than following strict hours or strict protocol. You'll be able to get to know one another better and work together and find the way that clicks. And that is the way all the teams that I know of in design, engineering, interiors, we all work that way. I hope that people in IT, insurance, and every other industry work that way too, but I don't know from personal experience. But you'll end up with that agreement that will help you work better with less friction, which I think is another example of how connectivity can be greatly improved. Sorry, my touchy mouse drives me crazy. So this is a funny one here. I'm now going to talk about how to get that flow going between teams that don't normally work together and don't have that daily simpatico of a regular group. Maybe you have to work with a team that has nothing to do with your work. Maybe they have nothing to do with your profession, but you still are in the same company and have to work together. Or it could even be somebody that works outside your company. The thing is, you have these different teams, but they might be under pressure to deliver results. And I think I can use this picture you have here, right here on the right, in a funny way. You can tell it's a stock picture because everybody has that funky, cool haircut. I'm jealous, okay. But it's obviously a stock picture. But I stopped and said, gee, I wonder if that's gibberish on the whiteboards or if it actually means anything. And so I asked ChatGPT to analyze the whiteboards and pretend one whiteboard was from one team and one whiteboard was from the other team. And I said, can you make anything of this? And it had a lot to say. I was shocked. It said, yes, the left whiteboard is, sorry, I'm getting these pop-ups that are annoying me. It made sense of the whiteboards, and apparently the whiteboards have some meaning. And so it can read those little things way in the background that are blurry and small, make sense of it, and give me all this information. And so what I was thinking about was maybe each team could just go have a set of criteria to simply explore this on their own, not together. So the team A would talk about what they think their missions are, what they think their goals are, what they think the unknowns and the risks are, these sort of things, how they want to work. And another team could do the same thing separately, maybe on whiteboard, maybe just talking with hand notes, doesn't matter. But then you bring all these materials together and just dump them all into ChatGPT and explain the situation to it, and it will make amazing sense of this with quite a lot of dexterity, with a lot of nuance, with a lot of understanding. It can actually blend these two things together and talk about what works, what doesn't, what might be best for your situation. All you have to do is ask. So don't take any preconceptions about what you think it might be able to do. I'd like to quote that line from The Matrix, free your mind. So just believe that it can do something and try and talk to it as if it is an expert and it can figure it out. And 9 times out of 10, it absolutely, 99 times out of 100, it can. So it can also turn those into, well, this is sort of a text image. It's not a polished JPEG or something like that. Actually, that's an important issue to mention, is that up until this point, ChatGPT is terrible at drawing. So don't expect it to draw anything useful. It's using sort of text to draw this out. And yes, this did come from the 2 whiteboards you saw earlier. I don't know if it's correct or not. But if you gave it whiteboarding or notes or scribbles, no matter how scribbly, and you brought it all together from the different teams, it can amazingly help you work out an approach that will work for you both and dispel the misunderstandings about what the objectives are or what the unknowns are or what the risks are, so that you guys can hammer out an agreement much more easily. So that's a third way that I think ChatGPT can help, especially with the connection and the cultural aspect. So you end up with a structured way, as you see here, of how ChatGPT thinks you can approach blending your styles, your capabilities together. This literally came from that whiteboard session you saw earlier and a couple of notes from me. So you're integrating all this sort of thing and you're discussing the practices you're going to use. So the result is a better collaboration, even if you've never worked together before, because it takes time for a team to work through a couple of intense projects where things are on the line before they get that rhythm. But you can get there faster using this sort of situation with teams that hadn't worked before and have very little in common, perhaps. I'm going to talk about a fourth demonstration, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I just find it really interesting. You can take any photograph and ChatGPT can understand it amazingly well. I mean, let's take this one. It actually can identify the cable trays, the ducts, the lighting, the chilled water supply and return, everything up there. It knows what it is. It can identify the ergonomic features of the chair. It can read so much into this that you don't think it can read, but it can. And I have tested this to the max with a great number of things. For example, putting in hundreds of pictures of defects when I'm doing a due diligence for a building, and it can read every nuance of what it's seeing and describe everything perfectly, and even describe the defects and the remedies for them. So this is a piece of cake. So you can take this with your own notes or a floor plan, and you throw it all into ChatGPT and explain how you'd like to survey this and suggest ways to make it a more well space, a better place to work in. And it can do that, and it can come up with all sorts of ideas that can be put together, used right away, or used in a longer term. It could even potentially create a very detailed brief. And if you wanted to, it could even break down the spaces and the needs and give you an entire brief of what's needed for a new office plan. Then you could give it to somebody like me, and we'll have a team of experts design that, project management, deliver all that. So you don't have to wait for us to analyze what you've got and use it to create the materials from which you will be a jump off point to get something done that you really want to get done, and basically turn this into something you'd much rather work in. And so this is a brilliant way to use the visual powers and analysis of ChatGPT to get that jumping off point. As a sort of a last part of this demonstration issue, I'd like to talk about metrics, but I'm not going to take you through a lot of boring details. I'm just going to say that these are the things I think you should be focused on from my experience: the psychological safety, the meeting load versus focus time, the connection and the conversations of the leaders with their team or vice versa, the retention and absence and the reasons behind it, and other kinds of inputs, wellness programs, all sorts of things that you can add into this. So I've given a list of them on the right. I'm not really expecting everybody to absorb this in the PowerPoint presentation, but you're going to have it afterwards, and I'll show you how to use it. But pretty much any metric you can use. The great thing is ChatGPT is an absolute dream for analyzing data. It can even ask better questions than us sometimes. And it can, if you say, what questions would you ask about this? What should I ask that is not so obvious? Is there any hidden thing that I haven't discovered in here? Open-ended questions like that. And it will tell you. It will be brutally honest. In fact, you can also say that if you're not sure. If you think it's being too friendly, you can say, be brutally honest, don't be a nice guy, and it will tell you. So you can ask it all sorts of questions about what it can perceive that maybe you can't perceive in the numbers, and it will yield some very surprising results. It will also give you clustering of data that goes together that wasn't clustered in the raw data, but then can be clustered for more meaningful reasons before. That would have taken time before to do, of course. And it's just great at seeing trends and issues. I had one time I had some data about sensors in an office space, and it showed that meeting rooms in a certain department weren't being used after 2 o'clock. Now, keep in mind, I'm living in Singapore, right? So I said, does this mean that we just don't have any need for meetings? after 2 o'clock? And I said, no, 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 you have the need for meetings, but that department is on the west side of such and such. And after lunchtime, it heats up from the direct sun probably. So people feel uncomfortable meeting in that room, and they just don't bother to meet in there because of the direction the room is facing. And there's probably, if you check, because ChatGPT cannot check, there's probably no window treatments to temper the light coming in. It is probably just too darn hot in there. And I did, and he's right. In another situation, I uploaded some diagrams and data, very complex ones, from an engineer who I know was very senior and very mindful and very good. And I said, can you analyze this? And it found a few problems. And I said, well, this is a senior engineer who's very smart, knows what he's doing. How can this be? And ChatGPT said, well, I think if you investigate, you'll probably find that he outsourced this. And then because he was just too fiercely busy, he didn't cross-check it enough. So the mistakes were probably made by the outsourced partner. And I did check it, and it was completely right. That's what happened. So don't underestimate that its ability to reason through very subtle things and give you amazing insights in any data that you provide it. It's shockingly good. You can also ask it, this is another key ChatGPT moment besides the other things I've said, is that you can give it personas. I think some of you may be doing this now, but if you're not, you should be doing it quite often. You can tell it to take on the persona of, in this case, a data analyst and a workplace behavior expert or whatever you need, and it will take on that expertise, meaning you've now got fundamentally global knowledge of that subject behind your answer, and it's focused on giving you the kind of answer that that kind of expert might give. And you don't have to use one expert. You can use a panel of experts, which I often do. Let's suppose I'm just going to say, what if I was doing some sort of LinkedIn campaign or something? I could say, take on the persona of a LinkedIn expert, a social media guru, and something else, and a writer from a famous magazine like Forbes or Wall Street Journal or something. And then analyze this, create an entire rubric with scores, and tell me how it could be improved. And so that's something else that's very important to know. ChatGPT basically has multiple personality disorder. Ever since, remember there was a lot of models in ChatGPT 4, they've now been put behind the scenes in ChatGPT 5, and ChatGPT 5 is now essentially acting like a router to route your question to the most correct thing. So it looks at it and says, well, this person needs a fast answer. It's a pretty shallow question. It's just a brainstorm, no big deal. This person is asking for something very complex. I'm going to give it multiple streams of reasoning that will take me a couple of minutes to think through, not 10 seconds to think through. And so you have to learn how to harness that a little bit, but the way you couch the information will help. If you're not sure how, again, ChatGPT can be your teacher. And basically then with these personas, you can bring out the expertise that you need to analyze it, and you can actually tell it to critique its own answer. So you can say everything you wrote above, is it biased? If it is biased, how can I take the bias out of it? Can you check it for your own bias? Can you prove to me that it's not biased? Can you also check your answer for mistakes? Can you give it each answer you gave a score and say how it can be improved and if it makes any sense, if the numbers are correct? And it can start improving itself as though one set of personalities is critiquing a completely separate set of personalities and giving you a better answer, which generally illuminates what they call hallucinations or errors quite a lot. So you can now use ChatGPT to correct itself in a very, very effective way if your work is more demanding. But I want to stress here that everything, absolutely everything that ChatGPT ever produces for you is a draft. There's no such thing as a final result coming out of ChatGPT. Everything needs to be vetted and looked at and examined by a human, changed, tweaked, adjusted before it goes out anywhere else. You should never take anything that it has just the way it is and just chunk it out to somebody else. Unless it's something so simple as like ideas for a new title or something. But what I'm getting at is that there always has to be a human in the loop, and you always have to have someone responsible to check it before it goes out to anybody else. And that I'm not talking there about the team use right up live with everybody, because we're doing that as we're talking to it. There's a projects feature too. The projects feature is not a live interaction with other members yet because of security concerns, but you can lump all your different data sources, all your different talks about your data, your surveys, everything into a project with a name for it. And every time you dip into that source, it'll have all your files in one place about that one subject. So I imagine quite a few of you are using that. If some of you are not, you need to be doing that. It's really a great way. And don't underestimate the value of renaming your chats. You have to go in every so often and rename your chats something more sensible so that you can remember it or see it and understand it later. Because sometimes it gives erroneous names, don't really reflect what the chat was about. And then you have trouble finding that chat when you needed it later. So keep that separate. I personally use two accounts, and because our company is so generous and so smart, they help me provide for both of them. One is a personal account, a ChatGPT Plus account that I use for vacations, medical, anything that's personal, and then the work one. And I hope you guys know that ChatGPT is watching, listening, and understanding you deeper and deeper the more you use it. So if you were to ask ChatGPT, tell me all about my professional life, who I am, who I work for, and tell me all the nuances about me professionally, it should be able to write a page or two of great detail about you. If it can't, or if that information is wrong, it kind of means you're not using ChatGPT enough or thoroughly enough, because it will develop quite a good simpatico with you and an understanding of you. And for those of you who have deep concerns about that, you just press a little radio button and turn it off if you want to, or press the word clear and clear it. But I don't really recommend that. I think it's one of the greatest features that exists. So that's what I wanted to say about these things. It used to be really difficult to take this information and really get something useful out of it. And now it's able to deliver much better, much sharper, much more focused results with, and your ability to ask open-ended questions is amazing. So you can say, what should I've asked that I failed to ask? What am I not seeing that I should see? You know, what's impacting this or that? Open-ended questions are great for this. And yes, it can produce those reports, but remember, they're always drafts. They're never final reports. You always have to go through them, change them, tweak them, adjust them. Now, I haven't really talked about governance and guardrails and things like that, because every company is different, nor am I an expert in it. Well, when I was doing my Oxford course on AI, the AI program there, I had to learn how to write a policy and examine those issues. But I haven't really needed to put them in place for where I work, because our main policy is you're in control of it, you're the boss, you decide whether the output is appropriate and how to tweak it. But we're not dealing in our company with sensitive data beyond people's salaries and a few numbers. We're not really dealing with sensitive data the way a medical expert or a lawyer or some other profession would. So we haven't needed that kind of rigorous carefulness. And also, we're not automating a lot. We can automate small things, but we're not trying to automate the entire company right now. We're using it in a way where ChatGPT is augmenting the person that it's working for, the professional it's working for. We have people from strategy and construction and project management and all different types of engineering, wellness, sustainability, you name it, commercial management. And those people are having their capabilities augmented, not automated. And their goal isn't saving time necessarily. It's getting better results and thinking it through better and opening up other possibilities. So that's the way we're using it. So yes, you can get great outputs, but it's an iterative process. Another thing besides drawing that I would say ChatGPT is not particularly good at is formatting. So a construction professional came to me the other day and said, how can I automate ChatGPT to put these photographs into this spreadsheet? And I said, you don't do that. You just stick them in yourself. It's not good for that. But you can pick those pictures and number them and throw them into ChatGPT and say, describe all the defects you see and the remedies for it, and it can do all that for you and fill out that spreadsheet. Then all you have to do is stick in the pictures, right? So it's using it to elevate your abilities, not using it to do grunt work necessarily of stick the picture in the place. I would also say that all these things are things that you can use now. So today we have covered the understanding check-in with your colleague, learning how to best work with somebody with clarity, team ways of working, and how to get that rhythm and communication going in your team if you don't already have it, or how to make it better. And the sort of cross-silo building bridges across teams quickly that don't normally work together but have to work on some sort of a high-pressure job together and get along rapidly. So you can turn those into shared solutions. And then I talked about a visual workplace audit to kick off the process of thinking about how to change your environment to make it better, more well environment. And then lastly, I talked about the different ways you can use wellness, culture, and connections in metrics, and a huge list, which of course you wouldn't have had time to read, about all the different metrics you could collect and potentially use. And the fact that it can give you amazing insights. So now I want to just talk for a moment about how to use this. This is what I was getting at earlier. You can take this entire PowerPoint presentation, and hopefully the transcript will be made available to you of everything I'm saying right now. And you upload that transcript and the PowerPoint presentation to ChatGPT, and you say this. Now, okay, I am going to read this slide to you because it's worth it. Dear ChatGPT, I want to analyze a presentation I've uploaded and use it as a springboard for improving connection, culture, and wellness in our company, or maybe just focused on one of those. Please take on the roles of a panel of experts, including a specialist in workplace dynamics and psychology, an organizational thought leadership expert, an expert in the type of business our company does, whatever that happens to be. You may also suggest, of course, other experts that will enrich the discussion. This is you talking to ChatGPT. Here's the process, ChatGPT, that I want you to follow. Ask me lots of clarifying questions to make sure my objectives and concerns and ideas are well defined. Nothing should remain vague. I will upload further information. I hope you will have either survey or documents or other information you can upload. Engage with me in a deep conversation on multiple levels of experts, connecting insights from the presentation, this presentation, with my goals and my challenges. And the output from this, eventually, I want this to be a distilled plan for strengthening our connection, culture, and wellness. So you can literally take this presentation and the words I'm saying in a transcript, throw it in, and then ask it to learn from this and discuss in greater depth with you what your needs are and build on that. Now, I know I've given a handful of, we're near the end here. I know I've given a handful of demos very, very, very quickly, but had we had a full day or a weekend discussion, we could have covered so many. Here are 10 others. Whoopsie. Oh, I hate this. Where am I? Oh, okay. Sorry about this. It's my touchy mouse. I'll have to find a way to adjust it in Microsoft. So all these things you see here could be created with ordinary ChatGPT. No agents, no APIs, no vibe coding, no other needs. Just plain vanilla ChatGPT 5 could help you create all these things here. This is about 10. I'll give you a moment to just sort of skim through that. If you're watching on a train in the subway, I'm sorry, I'm not going to read it to you, but you'll have the PowerPoint later to read it. And you can come up with your own. And here's another 10 that you could do. So there's no end to the different ways that you can improve culture, connectivity, and wellness. It's just free your mind of all the possibilities and just take chances and get that culture of inquisitiveness to try and experiment with it. You're not going to break it. So that's another list here that obviously is too small to read right now, but you can include this in the PowerPoint when you're talking about it yourself to ChatGPT. That's basically all I had to say. I don't know how long that lasted, but I'm happy to work through any questions anybody has. Fire away. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much. If you could stop sharing, that would be great as well, so that
Sure.
people can see that amazing shirt. Well, thank you very much. Wonderful. One question that's come up a couple of times, Charles, is about confidentiality. Someone says, I understand there's a difference between the paid and the free version. Someone else says confidentiality is a big concern for businesses. Who else can access what we're putting into ChatGPT? And a product manager says it's a big concern of mine because I'd love to use it more to help me with content creation, but I get worried about if I don't feed it specific confidential information.
Well, of course, I wouldn't put in anything that is, if you're not using the enterprise version like we are, if you're using ChatGPT Plus or something like that, which is the next best model, it will train its entire model on your data. I think there is a opt-out button, but it's been so long since I've checked it because I've been on enterprise. I don't even know if it's still there, but I imagine it still is, where you can opt out. There's a lot you can do in the settings of ChatGPT, which I didn't go through, but you need to explore the settings because there's a lot there that you can customize. And it's not as complicated as a lot of other softwares. But I believe you can still opt out of having it train its model off your data. I read somewhere that it saves your data for a number of months in case there's a dispute or a legal problem. But its goal is not to sit there and analyze your particular company and your particular things. Who knows where the future will go? There's so many big power plays. We don't know what will happen in the future. But for now, it's pretty safe unless you've got some seriously confidential things. If I was a doctor or a lawyer and doing things that were highly confidential, yes, I would have to have very serious guardrails and examine that. But for our industry in architecture, engineering, construction, it's not rocket science, and we're not going to. It's complicated, it's detailed, it's very heavy with data and stuff, but there's nothing there that is. And if you are, let's say, doing some of these things with that I mentioned earlier with teams, with individuals, all these things, just use false names, right? Just don't use the people's real names. Do like they did in Reservoir Dogs, Mr. Pink and Mr. Blue, or I don't know. So the point is that you can figure out ways. You guys are adults. You're all probably smarter than I am. You can figure out ways to make it less risky if you're talking about individuals. But if you're talking about data that is extremely important, you do have to have that conversation with your company. And I can't speak to the generalities of it because every company has different unique needs. I can only say that the people in my industry shouldn't be worried as long as they're not putting in personnel records and their finances. There's nothing really that is of risk, really, at all. But if you're doing,
you would recommend the enterprise version if
well,
possible,
it's more expensive.
Security.
It's more expensive. It depends on how far your company is really into it. And of course, some people may want to go down the route of using Claude or other things. I just want to say that it's easily customizable. I believe you can opt out of having it share data with ChatGPT. There may come a day when the global powers that be get into the data in ways that we don't expect, but it's not really happening now. So you really need to assess, is what you're talking about really that confidential? And if the answer is yes, look for that non-training button that says don't train on my information. And if you're really seriously concerned, anonymize it or don't put it in there. Or, certainly if you're worried about client names, give them a code name or something. But I don't think anybody's really going to suddenly have it all exposed to the internet suddenly, right? It's not going to it's going to suddenly have a data leak where everybody's going to read everybody else's chats. Now watch, it'll happen tomorrow and I'll be, but I find the risks are low for most companies. But if you're talking about, the particulars of an individual's insurance policies in your insurance company, then yeah, I wouldn't. You might give them a code number so nobody can know who that is, but mostly we're not using it to manipulate the data of the company in a holistic way like that. We're using it for the individuals to improve their own cognizant abilities, and it's like a second brain for our guys. So I have a mid-level engineer, and he goes, what's the difference between a VAV system and this system, and how do I know which one is best for the client, and what are the cost differences? So he's learning as he's engineering, and it's giving him the power. A mid-level engineer is giving him the ability of a more senior engineer. So that's the kind of thing we're into, the augmenting of the individuals and the teams to dig deeper, think better, not to manipulate holistically sensitive data of the company. That's not really what we're trying to do.
Okay,
so I'm sorry if I can't answer that precisely.
Don't worry, that's fine. I'm going to move on because we're running out of time, and I've got a couple more questions that I want to ask. One is, and this raises the issue about what about other versions of AI tools. Thank you for your presentation. What's your point of view on DeepSeek versus ChatGPT? And my question is, there are other versions available, Copilot, that kind of stuff from Microsoft. What's your view on those?
Okay, well, DeepSeek I haven't tried much. I tried a bit, but if you really wanted to get the full benefit of it, you'd have to download it and then run it in your company, which means that you'd have to have all the compute power to do that. So there's costs not associated with the free program, but with setting up to be your own private LLM. I can't speak to the particulars of that, but there's more to it than would meet the eye. And in fact, if you want to delve into that, you could ask Claude or ChatGPT to explain that to you. I probably did some time back, but I've forgotten most of it now. So I'm not an expert in DeepSeek. We have investigated it, but we didn't find it particularly right for us. But they say that, people having their own systems is the future, but that's a lot of compute power you'd have to have or rent to do that. I have investigated a little bit more deeply Copilot. I had a low opinion of Copilot at the beginning. To me, it was like the new version of that paperclip that sticks his nose in your business and says, I see you're writing something, can I help you? And that used to annoy the shit out of me. But now I've come to find some of the things it's doing are pretty good. ChatGPT, for example, has something called connectors, which you can go in and connect it or turn it on. Your IT division has to be part of this process to connect it to your calendar, to let's say your Teams and your SharePoint and your other things that you use. And then it's amazing. You can go in and say, I've got a meeting coming up with XYZ company about this issue. How the conversation's been going? What things do you think the client might ask? What are the key issues that are unresolved? And it will go through all your mails, all your files, all your calendars, everything you can find, and give you a very intelligent report back to you that's really usable. But it turns out that even though it beats out Copilot in that because of its reasoning power, Copilot is better at sorting through, if you're using Microsoft, sorting through all those mails, all those calendars, all those Teams information. So if you're on like Microsoft 365, its tentacles and its threads through everything are much deeper, and it can gather more information more effectively to give you a better summary. The problem is that the summaries tend to be a little bit shallow because they're just reporting it to you. They're not thinking about it that hard. But recently they've said, oh, we've announced that it's now using ChatGPT 5 under the hood. This is Copilot. And so I tested that, and the answer was, well, when I access it through Teams, no, it's still using 4, and it's not that great. But if you're accessing it, the version that's online, yes, it has 5, and it's just as good. So if you use the online version of Copilot, it's damn good, and it will go through all those things. They don't call them connectors, but it'll just go through all your stuff and compile stuff, and that's very useful. I don't find it particularly a good note taker because it does what I refer to as stream of consciousness note taking. He said this and I said that, and then you talked about that. It may be getting better, but I like my notes to be consolidated under topics, right? And so what I tend to do is take a recorded meeting and then transcribe it just using Word, which Word has a great transcribing feature. If you don't know it, it's under the word dictate. Anyway, and then throw that transcription into ChatGPT and say, organize this to pull out all the ideas, the intentions, the key takeaways. And it does a brilliant job of subheadings and organizing it gorgeously for me. You can even say, remove all the chit chat that is non-essential to it, and it will do that too. So I find that there's a better workflow for, and I don't like to get what do you call it, subscription heavy stuff. So I avoid subscriptions whenever I can. I find that ChatGPT 5 can do 90% of the stuff I need. Midjourney is used by our company heavily as well for creating visuals. That's my rhythm, is to use that. I think any of the other ones, LLMs can do a perfectly great job. One of the things I like about ChatGPT is it has a memory of who you are, what you do, and what your preferences are. That's pretty deep, and that's why I tend to side with that. Does that answer
Thank
the
you.
question?
That's great. We are up to time. We will.
I would have liked to have answered more. Sorry.
Yeah, there are more, but we are past the hour. So thank you very much for a fantastic session, Charles. Thank you.
Okay, well, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you all.